But right now, it's about the four guys that Florida State picked up this week. And the guy that I'm most familiar with is obviously 3-year starting wide receiver at Tennessee, Squirrel White. Not going to sell him as the best wide receiver in the country, but definitely a high-level performer in the SEC and a consistent guy for 3 years for the Vols for some really good offenses.
Yeah, no doubt. He's kind of, they sold him on being the number 2 beside Deuce Robinson, the guy that you got earlier. He'd been there for 3 years, 1,665 yards, 6 touchdowns. In 2024, he only had 31 receptions, 381 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he's a little banged up, here and there throughout the year. Just a super, super explosive guy. Not the biggest guy, 5'10", 175 pounds, but can be that kind of Ontario McCaleb, gadget guy in Gus Malzahn's offense. He's got just explosiveness in and out of his breaks, kind of different than anything we have on the roster. Big time deep threat and a big time pickup for this offense. There's no doubt about it. Somebody that we really, really wanted, and kind of rounding out that wide receiver room. You kind of have your options set as we go in here to spring. Couldn't be more excited about a guy. He's one of the best screen wide receivers like in college football. Got one of the highest ratings on his, targets out there. And so to go along with Deuce, somebody you bring in when we've had kind of poor blocking out wide, if you can get Deuce Robinson, 6'6", 230 pounds, blocking for Squirrel, it should be a lot of fun to watch. People really, really excited about a guy who's just, again, very, very explosive and, super high ceiling on him. Can't wait to see what he can do in Garnet and Gold for sure.
So other than Squirrel White, of course, there's another new Seminole coming by way of Rocky Top, and that's, of course, Justin Jenkins.
Yeah, Sunday was all about the state of Tennessee because you get Squirrel White, of course, guy going into his 4th year. You also get decent defensive lineman Jason Jenkins, 6'6", 280 pounds, 4th-year junior. He only had 9 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. But, you've already got James Williams. You got Deontay McCray penciled in, probably going to be your starters. He's going to be your 3rd, 4th defensive lineman coming in this class. And, really nice piece to add. He really kind of violent, a guy that can set that edge at about 270, 280 pounds. Kind of everything we were hoping to get out of a Sione Lolohea, Tomia Dorijaye last year. He shows that violent tendency on the edge and kind of just what you needed to flip this defensive line room. If you talk to people around Tennessee, Jen has a bunch of sources up there. He's somebody that they really wanted to keep. They were a playoff team this year. He probably wanted a little bit more playing time than he got. And you get him into Tallahassee, and it's somebody you could really look to be a great guy coming off the bench for the Seminoles for sure.
4 TFLs, 2 sacks for Justin Jenkins, 13 total games played, 9 total tackles. And then however you want to pick off the other 2, we got a player coming in from Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Diamante Diggs, similar story, a little bit more production out of Coastal Carolina, but the same thing with the size. All the defensive line we brought in, completely different size. It really fit this 3-3-5 scheme. 6'5", 260 pounds, 4th-year senior, 34 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 pass breakups last year. So again, to go along with James Williams and Deontay McCray, you have 2 really nice defensive ends there to back them up, along with what you got left on the roster. A nice pickup for sure. The kid from Sam Houston State, I think it was pretty much between, those are the 3 guys you had. Chris Murray, he ends up going to Auburn, I believe. But it's just one of those things. I think once they realized Diamante and Jason were in, he was gone. But yeah, if you thought if Diamante Diggs and Jason Jenkins were the 2 guys you were bringing in, and you're pissed, we're going to count on these guys to be starters, maybe you'd be a little worried. But to have that level of guys to come in to be reserves behind James Williams, again, and Deontay McCray, it's really amazing. You have to be super excited with what this team was able to do with the trenches to go along with the 4 offensive linemen, 4 defensive linemen, and we'll get into the linebackers next. I said Sunday was about all about the state of Tennessee. Well, the next guy, the 3rd guy that we had to commit on Sunday was Elijah Herring, a guy who was just extremely productive. He was my top target at linebacker out of the portal from day one. Was a little worried, looked like maybe he wouldn't get in here, but eventually he comes and gets a visit real late last week. 6'3", 230 pounds, a fourth year guy. Last year at Memphis, he played 11 games, had 60 tackles, 8 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 passes defense, a fumble return, 2 forced fumbles. But he actually came from Tennessee, just like Jason Jenkins and Squirrel White. He actually led Tennessee's defense in tackles in 2023 as a reserve. Wasn't kind of as high on their plans as he wanted, whatever reason. He goes out to Memphis to a terrible defense, like a defense that was really trying to turn things around. He goes out there and is like a huge kind of culture boon for that program. And as I just named, just an absolute stat stuffer. He got a pick to seal their bowl game win. It's kind of funny. The one game he did not play this year out of the 11 or out of the regular season was the Florida State game. So we didn't get to see him against us, but he kind of really, if you listen to the coaches talk and things like that, flipped the culture over there on defense, and just a really great addition. Exactly what we needed for a middle linebacker, somebody you could count on in this defense. So, yeah, the state of Tennessee was really, really great to Florida State, and for him to go along with Stephon Thompson, you got Juice Cryer coming back. There's a lot of hope. Omar Graham Jr., Blake Nicholson, and also Caleb Loveley, the guy who started for UNC and just was like the MVP of the bowl game, had an 80-something PFF rating in that game. It's pretty amazing what they've been able to do with the front seven in the trenches on the offensive line as well in this portal class. You come in with a number 5, you finish with number 5 portal class according to 247 at this moment. Of course, that could change. Like we were talking about off air, technically they had till Sunday night to get enrolled if they wanted to start classes, be available for the spring semester. But you have a 3-day grace period there for drop ad, for people that want to pick up and drop classes and things of that nature. So today is kind of the hard cutoff as far as I know for getting in and being here for spring. So things are going to slow down a little bit, but it's not over. There's, extra windows for the playoff teams and they get eliminated, head coaches that are still interviewing for NFL jobs and things of that nature. But the core, the kind of main group of this portal class is in, and man, you can't be higher on what this staff did. There's a lot of chicken littles and kind of people all worried and people hating on the timeline talking about, oh, y'all signed the number 3 portal class according to On3 last year. Another day, another year, the same thing. But it couldn't be farther from the truth. The only thing that's similar with this class and last year's portal class is the number of guys. You had 17 last year. You have 16 this year. Last year, you were signing guys. We were having to cut up practice tape for these highlights. A lot of guys that were backups, ever seen the field, whether it be at Alabama or Georgia or wherever they came from, and you were really projecting. Florida State, 80% high school kids going into the year last year. We were hoping these guys could come in and provide depth and grow and step up and things of that nature. It was really an extension of high school recruiting. Even like offensive linemen, no other portal classes we ever went out and got this many proven production guys. This class is all about proven production. Just about everybody we've talked about, Jason Jenkins kind of being the exception there, were starters. Squirrel White, the guy with a ton of production, Elijah Herring, starter at Memphis, all your offensive linemen, starters, all conference runners up, things of that nature. So they really, really flipped this roster, and they've got guys that are going to come in and take over starting roles and be leaders. It's going to be exciting to see a completely new look Florida State squad come spring. Herb Hand, Gus Malzahn, if you want to look at the advanced metrics, EPA in the run game, number 2 in the nation at UCF last year. Florida State, 131st. So for them to be able to come get those guys, some of the guys you're still in, all of a sudden you're in it for these high school guys that you haven't been in for a long time. Real exciting time for Florida State, and the anticipation for spring is going to be off the charts. Can't wait to see kind of what it looks like with this new group of guys. And not to harp back, but like James Williams is somebody that, man, you really get excited about on the defensive line. A guy who was a pass rush expert, didn't have the most snaps in the world. He had a ton of production, 5 sacks, and just really ready to step into that next role. And Deontay McCray on the other side, same thing, or not the same thing. He played a ton of snaps at Western Kentucky, super, super productive. And you got guys, Jenkins, McCray, Diamante Diggs that can really set that edge, and then a super talented pass rusher out there on the other side. Really, really exciting. And we can kind of get into one of the high school guys who's burning up the timeline and has everybody super excited. The best player, interior defensive lineman you've signed in about a decade for Florida State as well.